Hey guys, good evening. Good evening. Hey, can y'all hear me? Okay. All right, good. Did everyone fare okay today with the frigid temperatures? Yeah. No, not really. I mean, to be honest, I contemplated taking off early from work due to a brain freeze, so I was there with you guys as well. And you know, it's truly cold when people request it for it to snow rather than have a sunny day today. I heard so many, people ask for it to snow than enjoy the sun that was out today. But did it? Where? Which part? Okay. I didn't see any snow, but it was definitely cold. I felt it throughout the day. Um, but let's keep the people in our prayers that are suffering through the unusual low temperatures. I heard there were several deaths due to the weather. Um, so if I could pray real quick for them, real quick. Dear Lord, just come to you today, just asking you to just blessing those lives that were lost today due to the cold weather. Bless those who are without shelter and still suffering from the cold temperature, and bless throughout this week that they may find some safety and security away from this time, and that you bless us all tonight. That you helped us to get out here tonight, and you give us that safety and travel as we go back home later this evening. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Okay. So on to the message. Tonight, our main topic today is anger, um, and so uh, I don't know if you guys are familiar with being angry. I'm sure you have. Um, have you ever been in a relationship, uh, a friendship, dating, working in groups, a team member, or any sort of structure? Then you probably have encountered conflict in your life. There's no getting around it. If you ever asked for money to go to the movies and your parents say no, that's conflict. I've been there. I've asked for money to go to multiple movies, and my parents say no. They continue to say no. Um, your best friend hangs out on Friday night with a classmate that shamed you on Instagram. Conflict. Your brother or sister doesn't treat you the way you think you should be treated. That's also conflict. It doesn't matter who you are or how smart, good looking, or right you may be, or think you may be, conflict will always be a part of your life. It's completely unavoidable. Due to this, we have to find a way to have disagreements without becoming angry beyond reason. As it was said before, the biggest problem in handling conflict that we don't see it modeled well. I think Pastor Virgil kind of elaborated on last week. Um, you're going to see conflict, and you're going to react the way that you were brought, that you saw it in your household. Due to this, we have to find a way to have disagreements without getting angry without beyond reason. Let's see. For many of us, family doesn't handle conflict well. Our friends probably don't either. Even more, a good amount of reality TV shows thrive on the massive amounts of drama. So we generally take our cue on how to deal with conflict from shows whose producers lock people in a room just to see what will happen. You will most likely see name calling, fighting, hair pulling, and people throwing objects at each other. It can be highly entertaining, but also super dysfunctional. Our experiences may not look like a reality TV show, but chances are that our reaction to conflict isn't superb either. At the root of almost every reaction to conflict is anger. Anger is what makes reality TV exciting, where one trivial disagreement turns into a full out brawl on the front lawn. Anger on TV is interesting to watch, but in real life, it can make us completely unhealthy if we don't learn how to handle it well. In our Battlefield series, there are 4 methods that are provided on how most people deal with anger. I think I have some examples. So as we go through them, see which one of these that you can relate to as it pertains to anger. The first one, I think we all recognize, is the Incredible Hulk. You know him or her. It's the green little giant, right? Some sort of disagreement comes up, and immediately your blood pressure rises. You start to sweat, and the veins in your neck start to pulsate like you're the Incredible Hulk. We call that hashtag raging. Sometimes. I'm sure we all do. Number 2 is the stuffer. You back off and distance yourself from other people. You let your mind stew on whatever is bothering you. When someone asks you what's wrong, you simply say, nothing. But inside you're boiling mad. You can see she's giving people the death stare. Number 3 is the everything is great person. You hate conflict so much that you do just about anything to avoid it, including denying that it even exists. You totally ignore it and brush it under the carpet so you don't have to deal with it. I'm over it, right? Number 4 is the stealth attacker. You like denying conflict. You pretend everything is fine, even to the person who hurt you. But when they're not around, you immediately find subtle ways to talk about them behind their back, make them look bad, and win people over to your side. It's the classic passive-aggressive move. Those methods may work for a while, but let's be honest, they aren't exactly setting you up for success in the long run, are they? When conflict knocks on your door and you respond in one of these ways, it always ends up creating more stress in your life. But you can be different. You should be different, actually. And why is that? Because conflict is never going away, right? You're always going to have to deal with some type of conflict. It's not a high school thing. It's not a middle school thing. It's not a teenage thing. Simply put, it's a people thing. You will always have a family member, a spouse, a friend, a boss, a coworker who knows how to press those buttons. Even your most trusted friends will create serious conflict in your life at times. Outside of video games and artificial intelligence, or AI, you can't control people, but learning how to respond to them may be the very thing that saves your sanity in your relationships. So we want to be in agreement with our friends and family, even though we don't always agree with what they say or what they do. So let's just stop here for a minute and think about something. If we refer back to the Bible tells us that Jesus experienced everything that we have. But sometimes that can be hard to believe. Did Jesus really know what it felt like to get in an argument over which comedy movie is the funniest? Did Jesus really know what it felt like to get into an argument over text using only emojis, right? Or to not get along with a teammate on the basketball team? Or to have his mom yell at him about his science homework? Sometimes it seems impossible, but when it comes to conflict and communication, it isn't very hard to imagine that Jesus can relate. He traveled around with 12 guys for 3 years. Those 12 guys were his disciples, of course. Having no idea where they would sleep from night to night or where their food would come from. I'm pretty sure that would create some fights, right? In addition, occasionally he had to escape from overly enthusiastic people and angry mobs who wanted to have him removed. It wasn't exactly what we think of as a conflict-free time. So before we move on, let's all take comfort in the fact that when Jesus teaches us to live at peace, he can actually relate to any conflict we go through. With that in mind, let's move back to a time before Jesus was on earth. It's a passage from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is filled with great advice and honest insights, and most of it was written by King Solomon, who has heard of King Solomon here? Have y'all mostly? Yep, about half. Well, I'll give you some background. Um, so, he was one of the most famous kings of Israel, and he's considered to be one of the wisest men to ever live on the earth. While Solomon was really wise, he knew the best thing to do, but he didn't always follow through. The stuff he wrote about were lessons he sometimes learned the hard way. In Proverbs 29, verse 11, Solomon writes, "Fools give vent to rage, but the wise bring calm in the end." So consider the position that Solomon was in, right? He was the most powerful man in the known world at the time. He was rich, he was famous. He could do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. He was king, period. So if he was angry, he had every right to go off on whatever got him fired up. No one was sitting around telling him to take deep breaths and to think about it first. Because when you're the king, you're usually surrounded by people who agree with you no matter what you say. So I bet there are a lot of times where Solomon gave full energy to his rage, and no one under his power would stop him. But even kings eventually got to a place where they realized that letting their anger and frustration could get the best of them, and it's not doing them any good. See, it doesn't really matter if you can get away with your anger. In the end, you can't get away from the consequences your anger creates. That's what Solomon learned. Going off makes you feel better for a moment, but it doesn't make you or your relationship better. Wise and smart people know that ultimately, relationships are better than a quick emotional outburst. Our response to anger can keep us out of danger. Remember, anger doesn't look the same for everybody. No matter how you express it, this verse is for you. The foolish are led by their rage. The wise, on the other hand, feel angry, but they don't let it lead them. They don't let it control them. They don't let their anger call the shots. They know that in the end, anger never accomplishes its goal. The peace, the calm that ultimately brings the outcome we want. Okay? So how do we get to the place where we can feel angry without letting anger call all the shots? How do we handle conflict in a way that allows us to feel frustration without letting it be the thing that decides how we handle the fight? There are 4 things that you can practice immediately that will make you better at conflict right away. It's an acronym for the word PIER. P-I-E-R. The P stands for pause. The problem with anger, it comes quickly and demands an immediate reaction. We've all done something or said something in anger that later on we wish we hadn't. Taking a few minutes to breathe in and breathe out allows us to calm down and to kind of shake some of the power away from anger. If you feel just as fired up after a second, consider waiting a bit longer. Take a walk, go for a run, read a book, do something that distracts you. If you're tired, wait to deal with the anger until the next day when you have some perspective and some sleep and the conflict doesn't feel as consuming as it did before. The I is for identify. Sometimes we get so caught up in the emotion of conflict that we never take the time to actually figure it out. What's the underlying issue that's bothering us? Sure, you're mad at your mom for being late to pick you up, but maybe that anger is compounded by a rough day at practice. Are you frustrated at your teacher who wouldn't accept your late homework? But is that all that's going on? The truth is our anger is rarely about one thing. It's usually a combination of several things. So we have to get really good at identifying what's really bothering us. You'll do a better job finding a solution when you can identify the true problem. The E stands for express. It isn't bad to communicate when you feel like you've been wronged, as long as you do it in a healthy way. Once you calm down, make the effort to communicate face to face. You can see Captain America and Iron Man kind of duking it out there. Text and social media allow too much room for misinterpretation. Plus, you can't hear someone's tone over text. Being able to see someone eye to eye allows you to communicate as clearly as possible. It's a lot better than stewing around and not um, getting to the real cause of the issue. And it may keep you from saying nasty stuff that is simply too easy to say through text, stuff that you may regret later. Face to face allows you to see how your words impact someone. And finally, the R. R is release in this case. Eventually, you have to let it go. If you try to respond in a healthy way and nothing feels resolved the way you'd like, you have to come to terms with it. So, in the words of the weatherman, well, we'll agree to disagree. Make peace with the fact that you did what you could and it didn't go the way you wanted. It's time to forgive. You must forgive, forgive, and then forgive again. An example for that, we have a verse. I need a volunteer for it. It's Luke 17:3 verses 4. One volunteer. Got one right here. Okay. Go ahead and read.
Take is it heed to yourselves if thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him, and if he repent, forgive him. And then if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, 7 times in a day, yeah, and and 7 times in a day turn against to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. Forgive him.
Good job. Give her a round of applause. So, you see, releasing someone from what they owe you, whether they ask for you to or not, is ultimately what will bring you peace. Um, Forgiveness takes practice. We are reminded to forgive, otherwise, we ourselves will not be forgiven. Next verse I have here is Matthew 6, 14 through 15. And can I get another volunteer to read it? All right, Matt.
For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
Thanks, Matthew. So you see, when we forgive, then our Father will forgive us, and that's the most important forgiveness that we can attain. The good news here is that you'll have plenty of chances to get better at it. So if you want to get better at conflict, demonstrating pure is a great place to start. And that's P for pause, I for identify, E for express, and then R for release. And so if you go clockwise, or no, sorry, if you go pause, well, the R is out of place. So it's pause, identify, then the bottom left would be express, so talking it out peacefully. And then R would be release, so letting the butterfly go before it dies in your hand. So, who has seen an actual pier before? Who has? Have anyone stood on a pier before? Okay, good. Good. So you probably know a pier is a raised structure that goes out over the water. It allows currents and tides to move beneath it, while it offers something steady and sturdy over top. It's kind of essential if you want to walk over water without getting swept away. Essentially, that's what these steps are going to do for you. They're going to give you the tools to rise above the conflict and stay steady and sturdy no matter what's going on around you, so you won't be influenced by your outside factors. They'll give you a response to anger that keeps you out of danger. In Psalms 37:8, it says, let go of anger and leave rage behind. Don't get upset. It will only lead to evil. So, to sum it up, conflict is inevitable. It's not the end of the world as we know it, but the way you handle it can either impact you in a good or a bad way. Ephesians 4, verse 26. Can I get a volunteer for that one? Someone to read? Well, you're pointing. You wanna read it? No. Okay. Sure.
Be angry without sinning. Don't let the sun set on your anger. Don't provide any opportunity for the devil.
Very good. So it says here you can be angry, but don't sin. And also don't carry that anger into the rest of the day. At some point, you have to let go of that anger, lest it will consume you. And don't provide an opportunity for the devil. So every time we get angry, it's an opportunity for us to commit a sin or to commit an act that we will later have to pay the price for. So we have to be mindful of that. So we have to learn how to control our anger without letting it control us. We have to learn how to not blow up with rage, stuff it inside, or pout, or totally ignore it. We have to learn to process it in a way that brings peace instead of taking us to a dangerous place. In Proverbs 16:32, it states, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city." So to translate, basically it's saying that if you learn how to control yourself, your emotions, then you're more powerful than the conquerors that have been in the past. So like Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, Napoleon Bonaparte, like they were all great conquerors that we study in our history. But at some point, they let anger and rage overcome them, and they themselves were defeated. Attila the Hun, I'm not too familiar with, but I know he went west to like Italy, and he was defeated there. And Napoleon Bonaparte, he tried to go to Russia during their winter. Yeah, exactly. You don't go to Russia during the winter. But he let his rage overcome him, and he was defeated in that. But you would want to be like the figures that we have as far as Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mother Teresa, who are known for controlling their tempers and flares, and they've overcome pretty drastic laws and circumstances in their lives. So, let's see. You don't have to learn the hard way. Instead, you can put the work in now and reap the benefits immediately later in life. You won't regret it. Before you head out, start thinking of the areas you might have conflict in your life. What step of the peer do you need to take next? And how can you respond to anger in a way that keeps you out of danger? And so the last verse is Proverbs 19:11. And it basically sums this whole lesson. The discretion of a man deferred his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. So just remember, when you're facing anger, if you overcome anger, it is to your glory to overcome it. You will find blessings in that, in your life and in others' lives. So if we can encourage others to do so as well, it can bring about a calmness and peace among family and friends. Thank you.